Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on Krista So Crafty. Today we're going to make these cute little gnomes. Now I've got these pine cones. Each pine cone is anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 inches in height. So the measurements aren't going to be exact for every single one. You just kind of have to make it work for yourself. Each gnome is also going to have a little hat with a pom-pom, and I'm choosing to make my own. I have the pom-pom maker kit, and so I'm going to use the smallest one and make some pom-poms. And I'm just using some yarn that I had on hand, and I do have a video on how to use the pom-pom maker in more detail. I can link it for you up above here. But generally speaking, all you're doing is taking your yarn and starting to wrap it around two of the arms on the pom-pom maker until you have the thickness that you want. Everybody has their kind of own rule of thumb of how to do this. I kind of go around until I have it about the thickness I want, which is usually about 3 to 4 rounds. Okay, and you want to make sure that when you end that arm, you want to have your yarn on the outside edge of the pom-pom arms, and so that when you fold it in and start on the other side, your yarn is there and it's not going to be crossing over. And that's all you do, just continue on with this. And of course, depending on how many gnomes you're going to make one pom-pom for each gnome. So to finish off, you're just going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to cut. There's a little bit of a groove in there, in between where the yarn is sitting. You want to have, you will need to take your scissors and run it through that little groove and trim the pieces apart. Once you do that, don't pull it apart yet, like I just about did, because you will ruin it. Leave it together and take another piece of yarn and wrap it in that groove and pull it through tight. This will allow you to tie all those little pieces together and to make your pom-pom. So make sure you pull it tight, and this will ensure that you get all of those little tiny strings inside of the tie, and you want to make sure it's snug. Okay, so now you've done that, now you can open up the side pieces and pull your pom-pom maker thing apart. And as you can see, mine is a little cattywampus because I tried to open mine before I tied it. Yours won't be like that. So just take a pair of scissors, trim it up, and you're good to go. These little pom-pom makers are so fun and easy, and you can make so many different sizes of pom-poms. It's fantastic. All right, so now it's time to clean up all those little pieces. It does make a bit of a mess, but again, the pom-poms that it makes is very nice. So make sure you put your pom-pom maker back together, put it back together, and swing in those arms, and it's ready now for the next time you want to make a pom-pom. So the next step in our process is to find some material that you can use to make the little hat out of. I have the scrap of material here. I'm just going to cut out a piece and try to make it so that it's going to fit. Now, again, I can't give you measurements because for each pine cone, the measurements are all going to be different. Basically, you kind of want like a rectangle shape, and this will allow you to wrap it around the widest part on the pine cone, as well as you need enough height that you can get the little hat part, so the part that kind of flops over. Okay, so just measure it out, use your pine cone, and just here I'm showing you it's about 11 inches, but again, this is for the pine cone that I'm using, and I'm just going to cut out this little piece. Now this material is some that I've had in my stash for quite a while, and I thought it would be perfect for a gnome hat. It's very sparkly and shiny, and it cuts beautifully. I believe it's like a dance material, or not dance material that dancers use for a lot of their costumes and stuff, and so that's what I'm going to use here. So as you can see, I've got my rectangle, and I'm just kind of throwing it together, making sure it's going to fit, and I am going to use my hot glue gun. Now if you wanted, you could sew this together by all means, but I'm just going to use my glue gun just because I think, it's a craft and we want it to be a quick and easy little thing. So again, I'm just putting this together, and of course I should be using my little finger protectors, but I'm not. Once you have your glue on there, just make sure that everything is all pressed together and it's all sealed, and then it's ready to go. We can now flip it around and we can start making the rest of the hat. Now, because we're going to add fur onto this, I'm not going to worry about the the raw edge because it's going to be covered with the fur. But I do want to make sure that it is nice and straight. So I'm going to just take a pair of scissors and trim that up. So now we can, again, make sure that your hat will fit onto your gnome. So it's a little tricky getting it on there because of all the little grooves on the pine cone, but it will stick. And of course we are going to glue it. And that's perfect. So now we can get this on here and get some glue on there so it stays in place. And again, there's no rhyme or reason to how to do this. You just want to make sure that you apply enough hot glue to make the material stick to the pine cone. And it's going to be a little tricky because it's not an even surface. So just find some spots where you can apply the glue and then pull that little hat down and it's going to fit on there just fine. I'm just going all the way around and again just making sure I'm hitting on various spots with that hot glue to make sure that the hat will stick. So I've decided I wanted to put a little bit of batting in here just to give the hat a bit more structure because this material is quite flimsy, it's quite floppy. So I wanted to put a little tiny bit of batting in there just to give the hat a little bit of structure. Now I'm just going to gather out the ends and I'm going to just put some hot glue on there to make sure it stays shut. Again, if you wanted to, you could take a needle and thread and just whip it through there a few times. I've just decided that I'm going to use my glue gun for the whole project. All right, we have our hat the way we want it. Just make sure that it's going to lay over the way you want it. Set that aside for a few seconds and we need to now cut our fun fur. I'm going to recommend that you do not use a pair of scissors and just cut your fun fur. What that does is it cuts the fur itself and then you don't have a more natural looking fur. The easiest way is to use a sharp knife of some sort. I'm using a utility knife, which as you can see is not the sharpest, but you just run across the back. Now I'm not pushing all the way through. I'm just cutting that material part that's on the back of the fun fur. And this allows the material, in this case, to be cut without cutting the actual fur itself. And it gives you a nicer finish. So again, just use your utility knife and of course be very careful. And we're going to get this cut in half because you don't really need a very big piece. I mean, this isn't a huge gnome. So we're just going to do that. And of course, it's going to have some fur coming out. Pick that all off. And we're now ready to apply the fun fur to the rim of the hat. But I do want to go along and just clean up that one edge a little bit just because it wasn't the cleanest cut. And I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue and then apply it to the back of the fun fur and then just fold over that little edge. Now what this does is it will ensure that the backing won't be showing through at the bottom edge of our fun fur. And it just cleans it up a bit. You may not need to do that. So I'm looking for the back of my gnome, where the back of the hat, where the seam is, and I'm just going to use my fun fur, wrap it around, and just kind of give me an edge. Now, I just told you don't use scissors, but this is on the edge and it's going to be butted together. So in this situation, it's okay. So again, we're going to use our hot glue. Careful, it's hot. And we're just going to apply a little bit of glue onto the hat itself and then run the edge of the fun fur around, attach it to the bottom of the hat. Continue all the way around with your hot glue and your fun fur, attaching it to the pine cone, and when you get to the edge where they meet, just make sure that they're kind of, floofed together. And now it's time to attach our pom-pom onto the end of the hat. I just put a little bit of glue and stick it on there. Again, you could sew it if you wanted to, but hot glue works. This is just a project that's going to hang, and it's not going to have any tension or pressure added onto it. So now I'm just positioning the hat to try to figure out how I want it, and I am going to put a little bit of glue just to make sure that it's going to hold there and stay in the spot where I want it to. So again, I'm adding that little bit of glue, and there we go. I think that's so cute. Now it's time to add the nose on. I'm using a little wooden apple bead thingy that I have. You can use anything you like, a styrofoam ball, a little wooden bead, anything. And just apply some glue and put it so that it's just under the lip of that hat. Kind of pull it up a bit when you're putting the bead in there or the wooden piece, whatever it is you're using, and that's it. We're done. I think he's so cute. Now I guess we're not totally done. We still need to add a string onto the top of the gnome. And as you can see, I'm going to use some embroidery floss and just a needle, and we're going to put this tie onto the top of the hat. Now I do tie in a knot at the end so that it doesn't pull through, and I'm just holding it up by the hat to try to figure out where I want the string to come up. Once I figure that out, I just come in from the back, and I'm going to make a little bit of a loop on the top, and I'm just going to tie them together underneath. And that's it. Once you get this tied on, this little project is done. I really hope you enjoyed this today, this quick little project. I thank you for joining me today on Krista So Crafty. Please consider subscribing, give my video a thumbs up, and click on that little bell to receive notification when I upload another video. Thank you again, and happy crafting.